The Inspector General of the City of Chicago has been thwarted at every occasion when he's trying to root out corruption and waste in our city government. And a few months ago, the Progressive Caucus went to the editorial boards at the Tribune, Cranes, and the Sun-Times, and a couple other smaller organizations. And we put together a set of ordinances that basically would allow the Inspector General, not the legislative Inspector General that you hear about that oversees the city council members. That's a sort of a something we weren't really impressed with, the Progressive Caucus. We feel that it's important to have the Chicago Inspector General either oversee us or the U.S. Attorney. And I think everybody should feel comfortable that if you're doing the right thing in the city council, you shouldn't worry about the U.S. Attorney looking at what you're doing. Now, a few months ago, we went to those editorial boards and we said, look, when we have an Inspector General who's trying to root out waste and corruption, and he's going on a trajectory over the last few years that showed people the position that was created back in the 1990s, started out a little weak. Under David Hoffman, who you all remember, it became stronger because he was really pushing to make sure that the rules and regulations of the IG's office were tighter, that he had more control over audits, investigations, and making sure that he could get into the meat and potatoes of what happens in city government. Ferguson comes along, Joe Ferguson, who's the present IG. The trajectory is still going up. He's fighting on these different issues. He's trying to really dig in, not only looking at budgets, but looking at the sister agencies and how they're doing things. We decided as a Progressive Caucus that we were going to get behind the IG and the push to fight this waste and corruption. We put together a series of ordinances that, one, allowed him to have subpoena power over city agencies, city departments. And if you remember what happened, the mayor, when he got elected, he said, I'm going to get behind the IG. We're going to root out the waste and corruption. We're going to be with this guy every step of the way. You know, this is a campaign promise. Those campaign promises fell flat. So we decided we were going to take up the mantle on that and fight with the IG to make sure that we got those things through. The subpoena power was fought by the mayor, not by the IG. It was fought by the mayor at the Illinois Supreme Court. And the mayor went down there and said, I'm not going to allow the IG to have subpoena power over my mayor's office, my staff, or any of these city departments. To me, that's wrong, because if you really want to root out where those contracts are going, who's connected, who's getting all these things, that's where the problems lie. And the mayor fought it pretty hard. We decided we were going to put that in as number one. And the mayor will tell you, hey, Joe went to court, Joe lost. That's his problem. I don't see it that way. The citizens went to court, you fought the citizens, and the citizens lost. We need to turn that around, and we're determined to do that. The second thing was making sure that the IG has a budget that's tied to the overall city budget at 1%. Now, we didn't think that was, too outstanding a request because they do it in New York City and they do it in some of the other cities where they have a specific amount tied to his budget. That will allow him to make sure he has enough people to do audits, investigations, and also allow him to hire. And that hiring aspect has to be taken out of the mayor's office. If the mayor's office wants to stop a subpoena, or if he doesn't want to allow the Inspector General to hire an auditor to go do an investigation of, say, the red light cameras, he can basically put the drawbridge down and say, no, we're not going to let you do that. The Corporation Counsel, who stands next to the mayor and represents the mayor, and I'll give you one other quick example. When we were doing the parking meters too, just a few short months ago, we were out there saying free Sundays, and I know everybody loves free Sundays, are not free. And that costs us millions of dollars that goes to LAZ because the mayor wanted free Sundays. Downtown here, basically, Alderman Riley's area, North Center, West Loop and some of the River West, paying more, paying longer hours, offsetting the free Sundays for a political gain. What we said in that, when we had some of the briefings, we went in there and said, we would like to see all the documentation that you claim you have that you were going to share with us on these meters. So for me, that means actually looking at raw data. And we had the capacity to look at that raw data. We have volunteers, people who are really good with numbers, sitting there on the computers, running our own numbers based on the information that we were able to gather and squeeze out of different people, including LAZ, and also based on a historical data that we had collected over the last few years. We asked the mayor's office for that information. Corporation Counsel sat right there in front of us and said, you can't have it. Well, why can't we have it? That's confidential attorney-client privilege. Well, who do you represent? Don't you represent the people? No, we represent the mayor. You can't have it. To me, that means I need an IG who can pierce that veil, who can get through that confidentiality, can get through that attorney-client privilege and do the right thing for the citizens of Chicago when the aldermen are basically thwarted and said, you're not allowed to public information. So the final piece of what we're doing with the IG is to make sure that he has that power to look into that. And, you know, recently the mayor was fighting even reappointing Joe Ferguson to his position. And to me, that says a lot about a mayor who will sit there and fight against the guy who's fighting for citizens. The one other aspect that we were saying was we want the IG to have oversight over CHA, over the CTA. Those are the areas where a lot of the money is flowing out the door and there's no oversight. They have inspector generals, but they're very weak. They don't cooperate with the city IG. And if you ask them to do a very intensive audit or a very difficult investigation, they don't have the staff and they don't have the capacity to do it. So there's nobody looking over those sister agencies around the city. There's nobody who can go into the airport. There's nobody who can go into the CTA and say, we need to make changes there, and the IG is the guy to do it. And when you have a mayor who's fighting the IG, that tells you a lot right off the bat. So I know he came out and said, I'm going to reappoint him, and there was a lot of wishy-washy stuff there. As far as we're concerned with the Progressive Caucus, and we fought over the last few weeks, when you have a city comptroller who gets nailed for corruption and bribery in Ohio, and he's sitting here in the heart of a $6 billion budget, I don't want the city corporation council standing next to the IG going, hey, we don't want you to look at that. Don't look at that over there. I want the U.S. attorney standing next to the IG, and I want the mayor and I want the corporation council out of the way so that the IG can determine whether that comptroller was doing the same stuff here and the people that were tied to him don't have conflicts of interest. That's not too much to ask, but that's what the Progressive Caucus was saying was, we're going to fight you tooth and nail on this. We're going to go into the media. We're going to make sure that people know that the citizens of this city want this kind of change, they deserve this kind of change, and to continue down the same path that we saw just a few short years ago when we thought we were going to get change is not what we want, that we need to change that. So we're staying focused on these issues. We got 4 years for the IG, and there's no wishy-washy there for us. We want 4 years. We want the reappointment because this is the office that needs to continue up on that trajectory. We're willing to work with him to make sure we can change the city, and we need everybody's help out there.